So right now, in a cabin starts a session on diversity. Florian Schmidt is talking there, and I have the pleasure to talk with two greats of the startup, HR startup scene, with Anna and with David now. Hello, Anna and David. Anna is from HV Capital. They have a lot of startups, I think something like 70 startups in their portfolio. And David is one of the top tech recruiters in Europe. He has been the first recruiter for Google when they entered Europe. And I'm very happy to talk with both of them about talent retention. Hi there.
Hi, Manuel.
Hey.
Hi. So we have 14 minutes only because we have this very, very tight schedule, and I want to, because this topic is very relevant right now to a lot of founders, and especially those that don't have a lot of funding. There is too much. I don't know. There is a lot of money in the market, so let's not say let's not judge. Yeah? Right? There's a lot of money in the market. The valuations are increasing. The funding rounds are insane. All these companies that have all this money need talent. They need it fast. And I'm hearing rumors that in Berlin, but most certainly also in other regions, that basically the companies are paying 20%, 30% more, sometimes for developers, not even doing interviews anymore, just hiring them on the spot, hiring whole teams, etc. Is that something that is my bubble, or is that something that you are also hearing?
Want to go for it, Anna?
I can definitely second what Manu is perceiving. I think that we see a lot of a very aggressive poaching. I wouldn't really see that the interview and selection criteria have been lowered, but I think the pace of hiring has increased, and there is a bidding war for salaries and compensation for sure. I think, David, you will see this too. We see salaries have skyrocketed in a lot of areas, and the scarcity of talent is probably one of the reasons why. But probably we get to more reasons why this is, and also what we can do to mitigate it.
I think that scarcity of talent is definitely the key phrase here. And I think there's not only the salary increases, which are definitely a factor. I mean, salaries have increased, people's expectations are much higher. But what I've seen in my work over the past year and a half or so is the amazing amount of movement and how many people have actually changed jobs in 2020 or 2021. And that's what's wild. Is just the sheer number of people making moves, which then limits those people, I would assume, to making additional moves very quickly. So there you go with your scarce talent pool.
Is that something that was caused by the pandemic, or are there other factors at play?
I'd say no. Okay, no, I would probably say from like a macro perspective in the HV Capital, where I can track the numbers. Pre-pandemic, we had like 1,500 job openings any given week, and it's now up to 2,600 openings that we like jobs we can create today if only there were talent. And this is with a slightly larger portfolio, so it's not like the double of the portfolio. So what you mentioned is that we're 70-ish companies these days. I think that a lot of people didn't move jobs last year because of a lot of reasons. Relocation is one, and probably also being looking for security, also mental load, probably not having the headspace to go career and job hunting. But they do now because they were fed up and like a dormant flight risk, like people in jobs that were really fed up and they didn't move last year, but they do now. And what David said, the mobility of talent is intense, and the tenure is probably churn. Is the flip side to it.
Okay, I want to talk about what the other companies that don't have the funding, that don't have the means, how can they compete? Because that's the main thing that I think a lot of the not unicorn companies, or the, let's say the in Germany there will be the Mittelstand of the startups, if that's a term. What would you advise, or how can companies compete with this crazy market right now, and in the market that has scarcity of talent?
So from my side, in terms of talent attraction, I think it's all about personalization. And how do you really connect with people and get to understand what it is that they're really looking for, and in what kind of environment will they really thrive? I don't think that that's changed so much as a result of the pandemic. I think two things have happened. One, there's the pandemic, which have caused so many people to kind of rethink their entire career philosophy and say, you know, how do I want to work? Where do I want to work? With what kind of people do I want to work? So you have that. But then you also have the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, Manuel, there's a ton of money in the market. There's an absolute ton of money. And therefore, people can, you know, companies like these can throw money at people. But the smaller ones with less money are going to have the opportunity to connect with people on other levels. And all the stats show that no matter how attractive the massive salaries are, the reason that you stay at the company is because of the leadership, the values, the culture, the people that you work with, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge opportunity there for these smaller startups to really take advantage by making more personal connections, both on the attraction side and on the retention side.
Anna, what do you advise your startups in your portfolio that don't have the means?
Same. I think that don't go up with the salaries just to stretch your budget to hire one more person or hire the top-notch caliber you need. Not every of the talents that have a large price tag these days will live up to it. So I think you would also be very cautious on who's worth what and what's the impact these people will create in your organization. So I think, as I said, don't go and just add to that price war and the salary war we see. This makes no sense. I think at the same time, play on your strength. And also be very selective of what kind of people you look for. The ones that are just maxing out their salary and comp packages are probably the ones that should be going to those companies that have a lot of funding. The ones that are looking for something different, they also will go for something different at the same time. So I think it's just wait it out a bit. I'm very hopeful that next year the whole talent market will have slowed down a bit and be less bonkers.
Do we advise companies also to specifically go remote, to hire in different markets, go to the Balkans, etc., to hire talent there, to just not compete on the let's say the home turf?
I'd say that makes sense to just cast wider nets. We also talked about diversity, so I think this is also another reason, if you need one more, to cast wider nets in also from the scope of your talent and not just replicate the mode of just hire the local developers from the direct competitor at just more money. I don't think that all those things still make sense or hold true. I think it's an era where we can probably rethink how we recruit, and remote is definitely one opportunity that lies within that. At the same time, we know, and as you have discussed earlier today, hiring remote and also leading remote is a different game. So be very cautious about how you do this. Just don't go there because it's cheap. Make sure that you have an inclusive culture.
There's so much to debate around this topic, and it's still wide open as far as I'm concerned. And I think people in Europe are actually looking at it quite a bit differently than in the US. I think the expectations in the US are even higher than they are in Europe in terms of you're going to provide me as an employee with the exact setup that I want. While at the same time, there's so many complications around them all. With the clients that I work with today, every single company has a different outlook on this. I've got people who are adamant that everybody's going to be in the office. I've got people who are saying we're going to be full remote. I've got people who are saying we're going to be hybrid, and everything in between. And I think that, you know, if you can make a sound decision, if that's even possible at this point in time, and say we are full remote or we are hybrid or we are this, then great. Then lay it out and explain to everybody exactly what that means so you know what you're getting. On the flip side, with the candidates, it's very helpful to know what they are expecting so that you can position them appropriately. But I think we've got a long ways to go before we figure this out. And I think that remote for some categories of employees is a very, very difficult place to be. And I think that in all of these conversations, we've left out kind of a group, or let's say a generation, and that's people just joining the workforce. And I think that those people we need to really pay particular attention to when it comes to, can they really, you know, succeed and thrive in a full remote environment? Because you haven't learned how it works in this company. You haven't learned how to build a network. You haven't established your network. There's so many things. And I think there's a big discussion to be had about hiring, recent graduates into companies and how you position them on this remote spectrum.
That's a super interesting point. I want to quickly touch upon, we talked about recruiting in a scarce world, let's say. Once you have the people and they get approached, how do you retain them though, right? If you talk to developers, they get offers, basically daily from someone, do you want to come here, etc. Of course, the answer is have a good culture, but that's a little bit, do you have some more specific things that companies could do? What do you advise?
So we see this a lot in our portfolio, and I get a lot of conversation with leaders. Like my whole marketing team gets approached twice a week from our direct competitor and things like this that have been a bit, they are new to, honestly, the European startup scene, because I know the markets are different. So poaching has been as aggressive as it is today. I think one way to think about it is you still want to keep a specific fairness to your salary grid in your company. So you obviously you can try to keep one person by just enlarging the paycheck, but what will it do to everyone else who's probably staying there for other good reasons? So I think you want to be very cautious in trying to compete with those offers that are for sure excessive in the market. At the same time, if someone is just looking to max out their compensation, which is fair and granted, but I think then it's only so much you could do and should be doing about this. And always think, as said, about the larger organization and how you're probably going to compromise the fairness and the salary grid that you probably should have, or hopefully you will have. Because if it's all over the place, then obviously everyone will be poached and leaving.
I think there's two sides to it, Manuel. First, you have to know your employees and you have to know what they, get motivated by. And that's really, really critical. And this goes back to my initial statement about personalization. Everybody's in it for something a little bit different. And it's the manager's responsibility to know that so that they can, provide this great workplace experience for their employees. On the flip side, you said, what happens if somebody comes to you and says, I've got a better offer, I'm leaving, how do you keep them? I think everybody needs to keep in mind that once somebody's made a decision to take another offer, the statistics show something like within 6 to 12 months, even if they don't take that offer because you countered, they're still going to leave anyway. So you really need to think about how you're going to treat these situations. And I think it's better in some sense to focus before that happens and having very, very open and frequent lines of communication with your employees to really understand where they are and anything that you can do as a manager to keep them, thriving in your environment.
Thanks so much. We're coming to an end. Do you have a very short, summary, something you want to tell the startups that are maybe bootstrapping or that don't have the financial means, etc. Also a little bit a message of hope or something you want to share?
Oh, I don't have a message for hope, but as I've been
David, please.
Okay, there's hope out there.
It's crazy, the market.
There's hope. Listen, if you really want to make something happen, if you really want to get someone in your company, if you really want to keep somebody in your company, you can do it. Okay. But you need to put the effort in. And having spent over 20 years doing recruitment, the number one thing that I see that makes people succeed versus not succeeding is that they either put the energy and the effort and the resources that are needed into doing everything you need to do to hire the best people, or they don't. And you can see it very, very clearly by how much the founders and the leadership team invest in actually recruiting and keeping their people.
Definitely. Yeah, I would definitely, again, second, this is not a debate. This is just me adding to what David says. I think it's this, don't lose hope because there's no reason why you should. Early stage companies can be equally attractive as workplace. It's probably different kind of people you want to attract, but be very cautious about what kind of people and deliberate about your hiring process, the people you work with in order to get talent, the offers you create and all those things. You're probably competing for a different set of the talent market. So don't be too shy about it. I don't think that there's a real problem here. It's just that it's just a wicked skewed market and it will probably slow down a bit soon. So yeah. And
Wonderful.
talk to external recruiters. That's one thing I would definitely encourage, even if it seems pricey, but talk to people who are looking at the talent market every day in and out like David, because they will tell you where to poach talent and where not to.
That are great closing remarks. Thanks, both of you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Anna. If you want to chat with them, if you have questions, you can chat with them via the platform. You'll find them on LinkedIn. And also, I think they're going to stick around for a bit on the networking tables or on the networking table. Just say hi, reach out to them. Thanks so much, the two of you, for coming on. Thank you.
Thanks, Manuel.